Let's go. All right, we are back. It is another week of Transnational. Thank you for joining us. If you joined us last week, welcome back. If you're new to the show and just in it for this flat earth debate, I hope you're all with us. But we know that this group is a big group of patriots, God-fearing patriots who know that we're up against evil. I may not officially be a Catholic or a Christian, but I certainly have learned that good and evil do exist in this world. And I've seen a lot of people struggling through the chaos because they don't have a good cause to guide them. One thing I learned from was the MAGA movement, people. That was the one time I realized that people gathering under one banner with a good general, per the Sun Tzu rules, you need the people, you need the general, you need the means, they have the means, they have the media. I get it. But we're breaking through, guys. Things are changing. The lie has gotten around the world, and now it's falling apart. Everything's falling apart. Britain's coming back. Britain's saying, oh, no, we're not going to do it, which could be scary. That could be teeing up the next deadly variant, the next fucking vial in the lab that they're going to release on us. That they're, nothing's working against this one. It's worse than we thought. Look, good thing we practiced all these lockdowns because it's round 2 in UK. So I'm not going to get my hopes up about old Bojo over there in UK yet, but it certainly is a good sign, and I'm not trying to get anyone to feel down when we've got an obvious win in this. Canada, we're flailing. We're pretending the rest of the world that science is different. You know, in Alabama with 100,000 people crammed fucking ear to ear, and Canada can't acknowledge that fact. We're screwed, but America's not, even though they're gutting your country, letting in people by the hundreds of thousands on that southern border. I heard back in July there was 200,000 coming across. So all things considered, I hope you're all maintaining your mental health really well, because it is a despair operation. They want you to give up. They want you to quit. So I hope that if you've had your job lost, like I've had since July 30th, that you're finding something to keep you occupied, something to work towards. I work towards the PPC in Canada because it's a movement that is anti-establishment. Anyone that came up through that system, anyone that went to those meetings and had lobbyists and donators to their campaign, we saw what happened. We saw the 99% Judas rate on Trump when it came time. I can't blame Trump. I don't know who could blame Trump right now. He's done everything. If you have the category of Sun Tzu and the general is one category, he got 110% out of 100 possible points. And now when you look back at that, when the black pillars come out, because there's a lot of money being thrown around, people, there's a lot of black pill money out there to make you sour on Trump. And I'm sorry, DeSantis is great. I don't know if he's ready for prime time. There might be skeletons in his closet. Maybe he's not immune to their attacks like Trump is, but it might be your next best hope is Trump. It probably is. He doesn't seem to get duller with age, like all the rest of them, like Feinstein. She's just a walking corpse. That brings me to another thing, though. I'd like to maybe have a hottest conservatives. And I know Dianne Feinstein wouldn't bring that up. But keep in mind, and this is one for Candace and for anyone in Spaces who wants to bring up a conservative they may think is hot, sometimes we need to get a little sherbet to lighten the mood a bit, which is why I also have my co-host TJ on again tonight. But we'll get to all that. If you want to bring up who you think the hottest conservative in politics is, we're going to bring it up. We're each going to get a score to rate them. The producer, Randy's going to get an out of 10. So's TJ, so's Candace. And we'll enter them in a Super Olympics of hottest conservatives in America. You can do it for dudes, but I don't really feel comfortable weighing in on that. I guess I will, just to be fair, because it's a largely female audience. I remember hearing on Alpha's hit show last night, which I was kind of eating while I was listening to it. So all that kind of live vivisection of organs, I wasn't really jamming on that too much while I was eating. So I'm going to get back to it, but it sounded like it was going to be amazing. So I hope you guys can bring the feedback in that realm. But just what I'm talking about with this mental toughness, as long as you have a magnetic north, as long as you have something you're working towards, you are going to survive the chaos storm. I don't care if PPC is ever elected. I know that I'm in a matrix where they control who counts the votes. I know you know that. I know America's got a whole different set of problems to the rest of us. But even Canadians, I'm imploring you. I'm imploring all the Aussies and all the UK, the English-speaking people will come together. Yes, I've been reading Churchill a lot, so I'm kind of inspired by that. That's what brought our flat earth debate. Sorry, I'm jumping around, but it's what I do. The Hinge of Fate, baby. This is a great book. If I would suggest starting at the top, which I think is The Gathering Storm, which describes how the decadence and the sleep of reason brought forth a monster named Hitler. And even though Churchill was saying at the top of his lungs, Mr. Hitler is building an army, the war effort will take 4 years to catch up, and we haven't even begun. We've got a handful of planes, and he's building a whole fucking factory. So I understand the decadence that's coming. So a great read is The Gathering Storm. And then the rest of this, I think it's like a syntology of him. And he's a great writer. It's very easy to read. I enjoy reading history. I suggest it to all of you. But I don't know where I was with that. But Journey will sustain you. Have something, have a goal that you're working towards. Patriots, it's not money anymore. You know they're crashing all economies. But the good news is this super band of elites, we're going to hold them to account. So we're going to seize all that Amazon money, all that Costco money, all that, Walmart money. We're going to seize all of it once you follow back that these guys were acquiescing to things that they knew was coercion based on the Nuremberg Code. I got a lot of hopes in that. And as long as we believe in the Nuremberg Code and we know that in history it's been used, I believe people were hung. So that is our great thing to hang our hat on and work towards, peacefully, of course, but just document what's happening, guys. Don't let it forget. Start a big physical library because the tech lords are in their pocket. You know the internet's changing. I'm not even convinced that archive.org is going to maintain all the records that we need to, or they can go back and sometimes the Wayback Machine can be destroyed by them. I'm not sure, guys, but I know we need to pay attention. We need to pressure, all fronts pressure. A tear comes to my eye when I see people protesting in New York. When I see the marginalized communities rising up and saying, no, we're not marginalized. You guys are just fucking tyrants. So it's all coming back, guys. It's all going to collapse. Stay strong through it. Don't go for any of that feminist therapy of just worship your saddest moments all the time and bring it up. I've had that problem with AA too, guys. I stopped drinking. I found it easier to deal with the chaos storm in 2020. I was just going mental, sitting around the house all day. Everyone's locked down. And I was drinking a lot of beer. And it just made me feel depressed. It was only like 10 cans of beer a day. But it made me like, you don't feel like going for a jog. You just feel low. And I knew it was a despair operation. I've read history. I remember Caesar plying the Gauls with free wine because he knew that if they're lazy bums getting drunk and not organizing, they're no threat to Rome. They want you done. Hey, celebrate. It's a late night show. I hope everyone's doing shooters. I hope everyone's drinking in celebration tonight. I hope we're all having a great time. But if you're depressed, cut the shit out. Stop poisoning yourself. Everyone unpoisoned and getting enough sleep. That's enough, guys. You can withstand anything. And leave it behind. If you're a dude, if there's something that's bothering you, don't blame anyone. Blame gets you nowhere. It just is negative despair energy. It's going to build up. You're going to fall apart. There's a big storm coming, but we knew it was coming. We're going to deal with it better than the people who are just watching their TV. Oh, let's see who's going to give me the best advice out of this TV. Those are lemmings. Those are despair people. They want to go into their pods. They don't understand the irony of watching The Matrix and going, you know what? They would rather live free in Zion eating that fucking gruel that they eat than living in The Matrix eating a fucking virtual steak that's not even real, just being food for the robots. That's happening now. And anyone that watches the cable news or the despair energy that's being pumped out there, that some loser on their couch trying to get the high score in Call of Duty, the real people that are going to survive this are the ones that have been in wars. They've been through shit. The worst, I got friends from broken homes that are dealing with this way better than the people that were silver spoon in their mouths told that they were the best things in sliced bread their whole life. Okay, those people are handling it much better these days. We're going through a chaos storm. I hope you're all going to cheer up, leave it behind, lock your demon in a cage, leave it in a forest, walk away from it. Stop talking about it every week. Hi, I'm weak. This is my thing. This is my weakness. I'm going to remind myself every week because it shows I'm strong because I'm processing it. I'm sorry. The feminization of the therapy industry bothers me a lot, but I'm going to go off on a tangent. I don't want to cut into our time for the most important debate in history. It's the fucking flat earth debate. It was a game. That's why I have the book prop in front of me. Sorry, the lights are a little distracting. Producer Randy mentioned that and how horrible it looked, but that's a studio upgrade, okay? That is a studio upgrade. I just wanted to show it. I'll unplug it in a bit if it's getting too distracting to anyone, but that's the upgrade because last week we got sponsored. The show got sponsored by Stugazzi Suit Jackets, and they've given me this to read. If it ain't a Stugazzi, you're wearing a Fugazi, and 3 for 3. If you buy 3 of these suit jackets online, the third purchase will be 3% off. So enter promo code transnational on their web platform. The links will be in the description. And we also have a sponsor of these. This great soccer jersey is from Winners. So Winners is, let's see what we got. Winners, everybody loves a winner. You can be a winner too. You can't always look like $1 million, but if you're into looking like $100 for about $20, Winners has you covered. So that's our sponsors for tonight. Thanks so much, guys. You make the show possible. Anyone who wants to make a donation to the Alpha Warrior Network, just leave a song description, preferably some grunge music. And then once the debate is over, I'll make sure that if you provide a receipt to Alpha and he's okayed this, I'll give it my best shot of the grunge song that you've requested even if I don't know it, we'll stumble through it. But odds are, if you don't name some esoteric, oh, this is Soundgarden's Ultra Mega OK album. No, I don't want to do some esoteric stuff, guys. Give me the goods. Give me something top hits grunge. Make a donation to this network because it's filled with great people. A little too many women for my liking, but we're going to fix that. That's why I bring in TJ. That's why we got Randy on producer. We're making it more equal because the women have had it too good for too long. We're putting it to an end, guys. You know why women are rising up? You know why women are the ones that are holding the flag? All this positive reinforcement. We got Terminator fucking 4. It's all women. It's a woman Terminator gave birth to a baby woman Terminator who saved another woman. Women believe in themselves. Men have been subject to a long haul weakening operation, making us bumbling fools in every movie that's saved by a black lesbian dwarf woman. So we are getting over it. The men are coming back. We believe in ourselves, even if the movie industry wants to make us look like a bunch of idiots that sit on the couch playing Call of Duty like way too many of us do. We're coming back, women, so be careful because there's a lot of us, and we've realized what your game is. Your game is you believe in yourselves, and that's why you're doing better. With that, a bit of housekeeping. If you're listening to this on Spaces, send a DM to Candace. Candace is a really awesome chick who's a co-host, Twitter liaison to the show. And she's going to mention to me at any time she can jump in and say, guys, stop the show. I got a DM. It's very pertinent to what we're talking about. Or if the show's sucking ass, she can say, guys, the show's sucking ass. I got a person that has a really interesting topic. They want to jump in and they want to say it. I want everyone to get on, but I want them to go through Candace, and I want Candace to kind of discuss it with us, and then we'll bring you on. But yeah, we encourage interaction on here because Spaces is all of our first love. My cell phone is ass right now, and it won't charge. If I get 1% for like 5 minutes, it's doing well, which is why you haven't seen me on Spaces. Good news is, brought me back to reading. Thank God, because Twitter had destroyed my love of reading because I just scroll through people's stuff, and like we all do. But it's crack, it's addiction, and we're going to get through it together. TJ's in the house with us. He's a good buddy who I love his energy. I just love having him around. If he says one word, not great. If he says 100 words, that's amazing. And if he says 1,000 words, I'm not doing my job properly. So let us know. But TJ is an awesome human being. I will drive across the border to save him if Pennsylvania is in trouble. Luckily, I'm in hell, and it'll be TJ driving a tractor across the border at some illegal entry point where I'm going to exit through it. No, I'm just kidding, Canada. I'm not leaving. I'll be in the gulags. I'll be with you. Don't worry. I ain't no coward. Again, Churchill, I believe in fighting, even if it's a defeat. In the Battle of Ceylon, where my grandfather was a bombardier shooting at planes, that battle was a losing battle. That was 3 Japanese aircraft carriers against about 50 obsolete British pilots. You know what they did? They didn't say, oh, no, I'm going to move to Florida. This plane might have enough gas to fucking get me to Florida. No, they fought. And you know what those 50 planes did? They depleted one of the carriers of enough planes that when it had to face the Battle of Coral Sea against, I think it was Yorktown and Enterprise, Yorktown and Lexington, I think. When they had to face that, it was 2-on-2 carriers, not 3-on-3. Fight those battles, even if they're losing battles. Lose with a bit of honor. Lose with a bit of defiance. They can annihilate you, but they can't conquer you. That's what I'm on board with for the rest of the West, because America's going to wake up. It's going to reconquer everything, people. I promise you that. America will save everyone, as they always have done. God willing, they'll just annex us as states. What are we, 52nd if we're in Canada? But we should never let the world's longest undefended border, and I heard Gunny going off about this, and please feel free, Alpha, if you want to send a link to Gunny for post-debate stuff, if we have time, I'd love to have her on. She blows my mind every time I hear her talking about FBI gate stuff. That's my passion, but it doesn't seem to be the passion of a lot of people. I want to go back and process all that. You can't understand Biden until you understand the people doing the weekend at Bernie's of him in front of the podium, taking all the shots, burying all the bodies. That's why he's there. He's there to bury the bodies of all the crimes that were committed in the DOJ, the FBI, all the other 3-letter agencies. It has to be done through Biden. That's your payment to Moloch. You lived your good years high on the hog, and now that your brain is failing, you still have work to do for Moloch. You still got a lot of work to do for Moloch. Anyways, I'll never get to this debate if we don't turn it on. I want to say hi to Tej. Tej, can you say hi? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
I love it. And I think you were ordered to not turn your camera on because you look like you're in the movie Saw and about to be decapitated. But I think that's just you got it.
That's
Go
about
ahead.
it. What's going on, guys?
Well, I love to have you here, and I want you to be a referee in our debate. I want you to jump in. You don't need to know the rules about refereeing. If something strikes you and you want to comment, I just want you to jump in, bud. You really bring the heat to the show, and you're my rock, okay? So with that, I also have Randy, producer. If something pertinent is being talked about that he wants to bring up on screen, I ain't doing it anymore. Randy's doing it. Randy is going to be searching things out. We're going to be looking at, we're going to be stimulated visually as well as audibly. So, Randy, if you can just say hi. No, you don't need to say hi if you don't. Oh, I like that picture. Jesus Christ. It's a thing beneath Nancy Pelosi, bro.
Oh, yeah. Hi, all.
So you're an icon as well. You haven't cleaned your room tonight, and you don't know how to use that fuzz the background thing. Okay, I get it.
That's the correct.
No worries. So, Candace, can you just do a check-in so we make sure that we have audio when we bring in the spaces? And how are you doing tonight? It's okay. I might have caught someone sleeping. I think it's hard to connect the spaces world with the show.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you. You sound great.
Yeah,
Candace.
looking good.
I am. It's a Stugazzi suit jacket, so that really pulls it together. And I opened the window so it's a little colder. It's a deep freeze in Canada right now. As my grandpa would say, it's colder than a transgender witch's nutsack. And it's freezing up. It's really icy outside because we had a bit of a snow melt and then a quick freeze. You might not know about any of that stuff, but you're in Illinois, so you do. But any of the Texans watching the show, yeah, it's pretty nuts up here right now. So Candace is going to be getting the DMs. If anyone wants to jump in, guys, jump in, make some chaos. I don't care. But we have a big guest. We have a special guest. So, Randy, if you could bring our guest into the show, I think his name's Jason, I saw in the pre-show, but I think it's TheDomeAbove, what was his name. And I was sending a picture from the book, The Hinge of Fate, biggest plugs ever to this book tonight, where they were talking about radio beam frequencies helping pilots because the bombing was so bad during the British night raids of bombing that they were using radar pulses to help them locate the targets, and they eventually made these portable devices to bring on the plane so they could see through clouds at night and get their bombing on because they were doing such a shit job at bombing, and yet the air command was asking for these bigger, better bombs. They're like, come on, do it right. And they said that this radar had a limit. Like if you're 200 miles out and you're this high up, it can't see because of the curvature of the Earth. And so I just made a quip. I'm not passionate about the globe model of theory or versus I don't want to attack the flat earthers because like Q, I may disagree with them, but they tend to be amazing people and they tend to have legitimate questions for science because science has botched the process so many times in the Rothschild sphere, if you know what I mean. But we've got Jason here. Jason was super confident, which I fucking loved because I am so hurting for people to argue with. And I love a good argument and I respect people that argue. And this guy's like, oh, he won't show. This globe lover won't show. So I did show, Jason, and thank you for showing. It looks like you're in some sort of workshop out there working on a flat Earth scale model.
Sir.
All right.
Yeah, I'm actually, I do van life, so I'm an industrial electrician by trade. So, yeah, I'm in my
I
van.
love it. So they can't take your job away. You're too useful. Or you could be like a Mr. Fix-It around the neighborhood if they did.
Yeah.
Well, industrial electrician. That doesn't mean residential necessarily, I guess.
Yeah, we do mostly like 480 and bringing a lot of power into the building and just kind of going from there. But I'm going to Maine right now. I'm on my way and I just kind of stopped. I'm in actually somewhere in Maryland, I think. And
you're just drifting in people's workshops and
No, this is my van that I live in. I got a full apartment inside. It's got a bed, a shower, toilet, everything that I need. And yeah, so that's kind of how I do it.
And you got a great data plan apparently to be with us right now.
Yeah. I found out what I believe. Like I'll tell people this. Like I'm not here to tell you what I believe or convince you. What I believe or how.
Please do though. But go on,
how I believe. But what I am here to tell you is because there's a lot of other possibilities, even maybe beyond flat Earth and the physical realm. But what I personally am here to tell you is that I feel that the globe is an impossibility, especially like, considering the fact that we, the flat. Let's forget the flat part. Let's focus on the spin, and let's focus on what NASA is telling us as far as the spin goes. And in my opinion, that's where you're going to get into a lot of trouble as far as like being a globe believer and saying, hey, he might have something there, because under their model, they're saying it's 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, and then it gradually decreases as you go up and down the poles of the sphere of the globe. So it goes down to like, I think about 400 and something at the pole, around 450 to 500 in Alaska.
Okay.
So
Now,
go ahead.
Before you get into it formally, I think I'll assert that I believe that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants to say that everything about our life, there's a lot of predictive power in the globe model.
Sure.
And we can go back, we can do like I give 5-minute opening, you give 5-minute opening, but I think we're going to get through things if I just could ask you, first of all, some basic stuff. Is there something Randy can search to see a map of the flat earth, of what it looks like?
Sure. I would say, and again, I would say if you're going to start, go with the Gleason map. Now, the Gleason map is going to have the Earth being a geocentric center. And, a lot of flat earthers are going to say, well, that's because that would be Polaris. And Polaris would be the geocentric center. So if you would see photography, and you would do a time lapse of photography, then you would see all the other stars with trails, and you would see Polaris stars centered. So that's where that would come from.
Okay. Well, Randy looks that up. I provided some props for myself tonight. And what I'm going to do is ask you to explain. This is, my kids mutilated this with a pen. So it's an apple that's been a little mutilated. And this is the sun. And I'll see when the sun is shining right on this side of the apple. The other side of the apple is dark. And it's spinning. So right now I had a tweet from Kevin, a helicopter pilot in the Air Force, in the U.S. Air Force. And I was thinking, oh yeah, the sun's up where he is, but it's not up where I am. Now with my spinning apple, that makes sense to me, especially if we're on a tilt revolving around this sun, that if it's winter and we're away from it actually, so the north, as the sun goes around, that's when we have that period of darkness. Now that makes sense. That makes sense to me. So, okay, wait, this is the map. But bring it up for 1 second, Randy. We'll come right back to that map. And now this is peanuts. And I wanted to find something that was a disc. So I want to know that if the sun is shooting on this disc, okay?
Right.
And it goes like this. We'll get to the part where it's underneath. How, if it's underneath the disc and it's nighttime, is my friend Kevin in Korea, how is he seeing the sun right now? Is he on the bottom of the disc?
No, not at all. So that's honestly a lot of where the problem comes into play. I'm just going to back up a little bit. I'm not going to dodge your question by any means, because what it does is it goes back to the first page of the Bible in our opinion. And it goes back to Genesis 1:6, where God made the firmament dome. And within that firmament dome is the sun and the moon and the greater light and the lesser light. So they're in the same, the divine made them in the same plane. That's why you see them in the same plane, and divine made them in the same light. So it's not a case of it going under the flat disc. It's actually inside of the dome, and that's why the Native Americans would say the shape of a turtle's back, and because it would be the shape of a dome. And that's why in the Navy, which I was in the Navy, and that's why it's called a shellback when you pass the equator. A lot of the history and the language is still there. And really what it comes down to is, I think you mentioned it earlier, is, you're sacrificing to Moloch is like you're still under a Babylonian system. And I think what I would warn people on is trusting anything under a Babylonian system. And that's including your education. And that is just part of it. And even if it said a dome,
Why is so South Korea is under that dome, and
Yes.
why is it light there right now, and why is it dark here?
Because the sun is small and local, and the moon is also small and local. So, they're I think it's about 70 miles wide or 80 miles wide or something like that. And you tell that by the shadow that it gives. The shadow is not going to be any bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when you see the path of the eclipse, you'll just see this narrow little path of the eclipse across the geography of wherever that path is. So that's how it is. So it's going in a circle, and basically the map that you're showing right now, what you're going to see is on the Tropic of Cancer is going to be North America's summer, and then the sun is going to get wider as it goes to the equator. And in December, like right now, January, December, it's going to be at the Tropic of Capricorn at its widest point. And that's how I found out. I was in solar energy for 10 years before 2015, and I had saved up some money. I went to Peru for a couple years, and I was at a hostel, and I modeled the sun for 10 years as a job. That was my job, and like I took it very, very seriously. And that was at a time not many people were in solar energy. So at that point, when I was in that hostel, I had never seen the sun move that fast in the sky, and it was moving almost twice as fast in the sky. And that's really how that's really how I found out. Within about a week, I had already known the flat Earth model a little bit, but within about a week, I figured it out.
Okay, so Randy, I like that map. Can you bring up that map again? So on this map, we've got Australia, which the first thing about this map is it appears to be using a globe. It appears that things at the top of your map are in correct proportion, and things at the bottom of your map look like an absolute disgrace. Like Australia looks like a long, stretchy, horizontal piece of crap.
Right.
And so if I'm on the southern part of Africa and I'm flying to Australia, why am I not flying over Asia to get there? Why do pilots fly the longest route possible of this map, which is like it's stretching out? Like, it's clearly you have flattened a globe to make the flat Earth map, which I think gives up the game that you guys don't have a science behind it, because there's no predictive value to this. What's happening to the sun still isn't clear. Why it can be, perpetual darkness. I mean, perpetual darkness with my model looks like, sorry, Randy, if you can jump back. So the stem of the apple is the North Pole, let's say. And if we're away from the sun, the whole perpetual darkness thing, oh God, I'm horrible at doing this, but it makes sense. The
I understand what I
hitting
understand.
the top. That explains it. That's explanatory power. So to have a theory, it needs to be more than I don't believe in, that the sales were disappearing. It needs to have some predictive power. And when I look at this stars, when we look out here, we can see a whole array of stars that spin in one direction. On the bottom, they see a completely, like the Southern Cross is on the, Australia's flag, or New Zealand's, or one of, I don't know, both of them, I don't know. But and it's spinning in the other direction. That is completely harmonious with a globe theory, and I don't know how you explain the night sky in flat Earth world.
Absolutely, I can absolutely explain that very easily. Okay, just imagine we're in a kitchen, and you're on one end of the kitchen, and in the middle of that kitchen there's a line, and you have a plate placed on the top of the ceiling, and half of that plate is black and the other half is white, right? And then pretend that you're on the other side, and you're on the other side of this room. Well, to me, the plate is going to be black on the bottom, white on the top. To you, it's going to be opposite. That's why you're going to see the moon flipped in Australia. That's why you're going to see all the stars flip, and that's why they're going to be different. Having said that, now it gets a lot crazier and deeper than even the Gleason map. In my opinion, this is getting a little deep, but in my opinion, The Gleason map was a psyop to remove Lemuria and Atlantis, and they don't want you to know about those lands.
Now,
And
I don't know about Lemuria. Is that an ancient land that was ruled by lemurs?
I don't. Maybe a lot of lemurs were there, but supposedly there's a lot of lost lands that were there, and that really goes back to the flat Earth model. Is where you start. What really drew me to it is you start looking at captain's logs, especially in the Nordic seas and the ancient logs. And you cannot lie on captain's logs. It was punishable by death. And they talk about Mount Meru and the center point of the earth, and how there was Volgamers and whirlpools, and that's what controls the tides. And there was lands of giants and pygmies and all these hidden lands that aren't on our map anymore. They're not even on the Gleason map. So really the reality is we don't really have a very accurate map that even I'm aware of, that I could say, yes, this is 100%. So that's really where I'm at, is like, I can tell you what it's not, and what it's not is a spinning rock would be very easily provable. Like, you would be able to prove that so freaking easy. Like, you would have, satellite networks with 24/7 watching it spin. Like, it would be very easily to prove that. And in fact, that's the one thing that I would encourage anyone to do, is like, go prove the spin and go find out what experiment that they have shown to you that is going to prove the spin. And the only thing you're going to come back with some type of pendulum that they have to start.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of when we look out at the other planetary bodies that we notice they spin, and like Uranus is spinning vertically, and Jupiter's spinning, and we have all of that to work with, and you can see the shadows of the moons on Jupiter, which
Right.
would say the sun is actually quite devastatingly huge.
Right.
So earlier you said the sun was small and local, but if it's small and local, are you saying that Jupiter isn't huge and far away?
Absolutely. I'm saying that all of those, and it kind of goes, if you want further insight into this, I would definitely get the audiobook of the Book of Enoch, and it's going to tell you there's a differentiating factor between the wandering stars, is what we call planets,
Mm-hmm.
and regular stars, and it goes back to the ancient Egyptians and what they said, that where the human spirit was going to go. And the ancient Egyptians, with their sky god Nut that you'll see across, and you'll see the firm, you've probably just never noticed it, but you'll see 2 feet on the base, and then there'll be the stars across, and it's the firmament, and all the stars are within the firmament. And then outside of that, above it is the heavens. And the Egyptians said that you're going to be one with the stars, and that's why they mummified your body. That's in South America too. So that's what the Book of Enoch says, is that essentially what's going to happen, let's say you didn't live the greatest life, but not a life to go to the underworld or whatever, you're going to go be one with the stars and serve a 10,000-year sentence before you go to heaven. That's what the Book of Enoch says. And the wandering stars are a little different. Now, that's the Jupiter, the Saturn, and that's what we're getting into, of who these people worship. And essentially what the power play is all these assholes that you guys are talking about with the pharmaceutical is the same assholes that I'm talking about, that's got our education system all messed up, and they're denying the divine and creation and what you see in this model, because that's, in my opinion, that's what they're hiding, is they're hiding God. If you said, well, Jason, who made the dome? That's the question they don't want you to ask.
Okay. Well, I see that you're linking it to ancient wisdom and ancient philosophy, and I'm not an atheist. I am an atheist. I guess I could say agnostic, because I don't know. But
Right.
I will say that recent events have brought me to the conclusion that good and evil do exist, and Christians are the best situated to understand it. And they're my favorite human beings. So there's certain things I don't like to tackle, because there's utility and veracity in religion. And I find the veracity I can't really back up.
Yeah.
But I find the utility makes the best humans possible. And that when too many people become atheists, we tend to turn into idiot communists who want the government to do everything for us. And we put ourselves above God, and God being a limiting factor that everyone lives under tends to make the trains run on time in human civilization. So I don't like arguing against ancient books and how they're science, but I do see a lot of the stuff within, like the Pauline epistles that's trying not to stay away from using the Bible as a scientific source and taking it on faith is part of the important bit, which is why I don't need Christians to get lost in trying to prove the science of everything. I understand what you're doing, but I feel like it's more linked to your ancient texts, your need to have the earth be flat, than it is in scientific reasoning or scientific theory of explanation. Because remember, this isn't like a theory like who killed Kennedy. This is a theory that is explaining stuff, that explains GPS location on satellites. I guess you would say this is, a computer generated image that we have on screen right now, and it was never really a picture.
No, I would say that's a photo. It's just a photo with a fisheye lens. Okay, that's why you're seeing that it's curved. The thing in the right hand corner is curved with it.
Yep. Well, I know that's
hold on. I just want to talk to you real quick about and follow up. So I like coming at it from a lot of angles. The main, if we were in the Middle East, I would come at it from the Quran. If we were, wherever we were at, that's how I would come at it. And if you want to come at it from technology, we're at the point where, we have all the technology in our hands, maybe in the 50s, and they were doing these moon things that they could fool anybody with newspapers. But now we have drones. Now we have lasers. Now we have, horizon photography. And I can show you horizon photography of 750 miles. There is no place on earth where you can show me that there's 8 inches per mile squared. You can go to any lake, any body of water and run a laser across, and it's going to be completely flat and level. It doesn't matter if it's a canal. It doesn't matter about any body of water. They're all going to give you the same physics of your senses as well. But meaning, does it look like it's spinning? Does that body of water give any idea that it's spinning? It does not. Does the sun look like it's moving in the sky? Does the moon look like it's moving in the sky? The other thing is you also need to figure out, do the probability of like a Big Bang, because that's really your only option. And if the probability of the Big Bang is, okay, this thing had an explosion and it spit out this little tiny rock that got caught up in gas, and just so happened in getting caught up in that gas, we have something that's 400 times larger in the sun. That's, the moon, that's the exact same size of the moon, that's 400 times smaller. The probability of that happening is nothing.
Well, it's not nothing, but it's near zero. But I would argue that in the vastness of space, things that are near zero possibility must happen all the time. I am a believer in the Big Bang Theory so far. It's not like I'm married to it. If new information were to come out, I'd be all on board. But the flat open universe, I think, is the one that is currently the strongest argument. And I've heard Hubble measured the Doppler effect of light shift. Of 95% of the objects we see in the sky are moving away from us because they're shifting to, I don't know, the red or the blue. So if it's shifting towards the red, it means it's moving away. I don't know, or the blue and it's moving towards you. He found 95% of the stuff is moving away from us. Not just that, the farther it is away from us, the faster it's moving away from us, which is leading to the theory that there's energy in empty space, and that the faster things fly apart, that energy will reach a critical mass at another point, and we'll have a whole new other Big Bang, and it won't be a heat death of the entire universe like people think. So I don't need to go too far down the rabbit hole of Big Bang, but I would say at least when you look at the night sky, it is in line with the Big Bang more than, I don't think you've satisfied the argument of explaining the southern hemisphere stars quite yet. But if you'd like to explain the dome maybe again for us, and how you can measure and you can guide from the northern star, and you can see how high in the sky it is, where you are on the equator, from the equator. But yeah, if there's a way you can rationalize the southern hemisphere, that would be great.
Sure. So the first thing I will say about the dome, and I'll get to the southern hemisphere in a second. The first thing I'll say about the dome is you can go in any Encyclopedia Britannica in pre-1958, and I'm going to get to that image that you see in a second. So you can go to any encyclopedia pre-1958, and you go to Antarctica, and they're going to give the height of the dome at its 80th parallel just near Antarctica, right? And so NASA came in the same year, and those books are gone. Those books are banned. So everyone in America knows what happened in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. It wasn't Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door. It was somebody trying to sell you encyclopedias because they were trying to replace all the ones that were pre-1958. Now, what you're seeing here is the image that you're showing here is really what's called propaganda in our eyes, because there's no dome there. There's no such thing as outer space. This is it. And that's really what is, outer space in our eyes is really just a fantasy. It's science fiction. And how you're going to know that is like when you watch Ancient Aliens or Star Trek or Star Wars or anything to do with space at all or space related, it's going to be CGI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I get it. The icicles on the edge of that planet map, Randy, if you can pull that up, that's very comical. It looks like they're taking the piss. But let's say you fly from up here on where the sun is. I guess that's what, North America over there. And you're flying around and you go to China across Asia. Are you saying that no pilot has done the flight from one side to the other and not kept going around to come back? Like, we could find no pilot that has flown around the whole thing and come back and said, yep, I didn't need to go back the way I came. Has any flight ever circumnavigated the Earth and that's been, documented of like, I kept flying and then I saw the edge. I saw, like, you can't keep flying west or east and find an ice sheet like this map would imply.
Well,
it doesn't get colder the more west you go.
You can. It's just that you're not thinking about it as like the center point, and it's the north. The north is going to be the center, and no matter where you go, north is the center. So you can still go east and west and circumnavigate. You're just going to go around the center, and you'll have to see it. And like, that's part of it. And I'm not saying that the Gleason map is 100. If I were to give my personal opinion of the only possibly correct map that I know of where we are, I would say that the outline of the moon, the dark parts of the moon are it. There's absolutely no way the moon is giving off the sunlight, because if you measure the moon or light at night, the shade of the moon is actually warmer. So it'd be the opposite of what you would think. So it's no way there's going to be sunlight reflecting off the moon. I mean, that's that.
And so things spin. So you shoot things up close to the dome. The satellites we see in the sky are swirling like a toilet. There's this physics that's working where the satellites can stay within the dome and they don't go too far to the edge. It's like, nope, don't go off your balloons. Because orbit is based on an orb. Right. And I don't know how something can disk orbit. Dorbit, would you call that?
Well, they're sending up balloons on with powered by solar energy. They crash all the time. You can look that up as well. And that's why, I mean, almost all technology that's sent back and forth is through fiber optics under the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're saying there's no rogue satellite, there's no benevolent billionaire who believes in biblical science that wants to send a rocket so we can see the edges and the icicles on the edge. I know that's a joke, but to reach the edge, to go farther than Antarctica until you see nothing. What is it? Is it turtle shells all the way down? What are you going to see when you reach the edge?
Who knows? Because in 1959, like right after I told you in 58, when NASA came about, they had the Antarctic Treaty, and it still stands today, and nobody can go. So nobody knows. Nobody knows if there's more land out there. Nobody really, that's why I'm not here to tell you, what I think it is, because I really don't know. I can just tell you what I know it isn't. And what I know it isn't is a spinning rock that holds water that's flying through outer space. I mean, it's just until somebody really challenges you on that idea, but you got to understand, like, that's how Babylon works, man. Like, the hardest part is knowing that you got deceived. And like, I remember when I found out, it was like I was staring in like Satan's face, and I wasn't a big believer, but it was like I was staring at Satan's face for the first time in my life. And he was like, I deceived you. You went through the military to do this. You went through college to do this. And all for nothing. And that's what he was saying to me. But then I knew, I had to turn away from that it's just a satanic Babylonian model. And then that's that's it.
Hey, dude, I get it. On the spiritual level, I'm not against people being, illuminated by this, but I feel like you might have motivated reasoning to make the earth flat, to make science prove the Bible, which I don't think it was ever designed to do.
Well, what
I'm
would
even
be your
really hardcore
that you
about
would go to that you would prove the spin? Because I think
I'm simply an apple and a flashlight guy. I'm an apple and a flashlight. When I look at this, when this spins, it makes sense. When you look at the other celestial bodies and you look at Jupiter and you can see the shadow of moons that are orbiting around it, and you can see they measure the pull, the Newtonian two-body physics, and then the three-body physics that measures the tug that Jupiter gives certain asteroids to calculate where those asteroids will pass by, and doing that with an extreme degree of precision, like astronomers have done, and listing, it's going to get a pull from Jupiter because Jupiter's at this point in its revolutions around the sun. That all adds up. That all has predictive power to me. And I'm so torn because I know that it's the spiritual side that's enlightening you, and it's making you woke to all the evil in the world, which I totally agree exists. I totally agree that there's some demonic force that is very dark and ruins people. So I'm on board with you with the spiritual. I just don't know. I don't even read the gospel. Like, I read Mark, and then I read the later ones as, politics needed this to change, right? Because, there's everything about the gospel is written as a myth structure with poetic devices. And if you read it as a history, you kind of have to believe that disciples are the biggest morons in the world who never learn. You need to believe, like, it's written in chiasmus structure, which is, a boy in white at the beginning and a boy in white at the end. And that's the kid that finds, the empty tomb, and, the ladies don't believe it. And then they have to, adapt it through other gospel tales where until you get to John, which is the most embellished and has been dated to like 90 years after Jesus would have been crucified. And that's the most embellished for political narrative. And you got the councils of Nicaea, and you've got it all polluted by humans. Where I think the original Pauline epistles was talking about, like, the Romans were putting him on trial, and he didn't say, well, you guys saw Jesus last week, he was in Galilee. He said, no, I had visions of this. And they viewed things in the world of, Adam died and was buried under the moon. And they looked at the planets as these different realms of the seven heavens, right? The seven things they could see in the sky that were moving differently from what they were viewing on earth. So when you look at it through that lens, I think the original Paul was talking about Jesus as like a high space priest being that lived out in that world. And then what was happening at the time was euhemerization, where they were bringing gods down to earth, and the gods would be in disguise, and the rich wouldn't notice them, but the poor would notice them. And Hercules is in disguise, and he's walking amongst us. And this is a very popular thing going around. And so a writer, or writers that were later attributed to Mark, made this gospel tale of bringing the high priest Jesus and all the Pauline epistles together to make this beautiful story, which I think the early Christians believed as a myth, not as a literal history. But then as time went on, and you've seen what happened when Muhammad's having visions that are very flattering to what he'd like to be true. You get this murderous death cult in the, bad Muhammad side, not the peaceful Mecca Muhammad. I'm talking about the later Medina Muhammad. And so they said, well, no, this isn't by visions. This isn't, because then anyone can have a vision. No, this really happened. So I'm going on a huge tangent where we're getting into the scripture stuff, which I didn't want to do, but it just feels like your arguments are rooted in motivated reasoning to make the old biblical tales true. And there's not much in the way of demonstrating that the earth is an actual disc.
No, I have many others, and we can definitely go through that. I think one of the main...
We'll go through a few more for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And then if anyone wants to come out of spaces, I realize, guys, I'm not like a globist expert, and there's probably some great facts that you've been mentioning. Randy's dropping a million things a minute into the chat. Just put them up on screen like you've been doing, Randy. That's great.
Yeah.
But yeah. If you've got any other knockdown proof and not just shooting holes in a theory that currently exists without providing a pillar to explain things and bring the explanatory power that's common to most theories,
Right.
if you can bring that evidence forward, that would be lovely, because right now I don't seem to have a good explanation for the southern hemisphere and the stars they're witnessing and how they go in the opposite route that they would on top, which is, it's consistent with the Apple and flashlight model. I don't know about any pilots that have flown west and reached some sort of ice sheet. So if that would be part of this map. I'm not impressed by the only map that you have of a flat Earth. Maybe the Gleason map is something different that hasn't been shown on the screen, but it appears to be a deflated basketball of a globe, which is almost like not doing your homework and using our globe to make your map, which makes no sense if you're traveling from the southern hemisphere fucking anywhere. Like, it just doesn't make sense. They do shorter flights from Johannesburg to Brazil than your map would suggest. Your map would say that takes 1 million years, but
it doesn't make sense to you, though. That's the only reason you're not familiar with the model, and I'm saying that respectfully. But
no, it's okay, man.
Let's go. I'm not taking it disrespectfully. So here's a couple of things that I would consider to be very easy clues, because I think what I don't like to get involved. It's not that I don't want to get involved with what you're saying and these astronomers, but what I'm telling you is there are a lot of scientists, just like there's a lot of scientists in the medical industry that are part of dark forces. So I would be very, very careful of eating from a tree of knowledge. Having said that if it was the case that you were on a spinning rock, right, and it was spinning at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator and gradually going up and down, flight schools would have that clearly defined in where you were going on the latitude. So if it was spinning at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator and it goes up down to 400, it would obviously be more or less difficult, and you would have to know these spin speeds. But you're never going to be able to look any of that up in any flight school. You can call them all, and they're going to tell you that it's based on a flat, stationary plane. End of story. So I'll tell you a good story about in 2016, the year after that I came involved in this. I have a good friend of mine. He's named Trey Coulter. He's an engineer, and he works in South Carolina. And he was telling me that he became a flat earther, and we were just shocked that this was a while back, and we were just shocked that we were even talking about it, because we both thought we were crazy. And he said that he found out because there was no curve calculation when he was doing railway designs. And he started talking to other engineers, and they said the same thing. So, like I said, there are a lot of dark forces out there that are very, very intent on hiding this. This is the biggest lie. And there's no experiment that you're going to say, okay, this is how I would prove that it spins 1,000 miles per hour, right? And the reason why there's no experiment off the top of your head and that you can't list that you didn't learn in school is because it never happened.
Yeah, but it seems like the Earth's a closed environment with like an atmosphere. So the 1,000 miles,
it's a closed environment.
It's like,
that's exactly
but right. It's a closed environment. So it'd be like saying, if I'm in a car and I throw a ball in the air, the ball should go directly backwards outside the car. It's like, no, it doesn't. You're in an enclosed environment. So
we're not moving anywhere, though. We're in an enclosed environment. You're
moving through space, which is a vacuum.
We're not moving through space, though.
I get it. Yeah, I get you. In your world, we're not. But it just. That argument isn't persuasive because, there's obvious wind currents. I mean, it takes like a couple extra hours going, back home from Europe than it does going to Europe. But those currents change in other places based on like wind currents and the levels of we're flying at in, 30,000 feet versus,
Okay. So
it just feels like we're a closed environment. And it shouldn't be, there shouldn't be a tsunami because we're traveling at 1,000, because we're traveling through space. We're traveling in a vacuum.
Right. So what you need to understand is in our world, and understand this, that heliocentrism actually came about really recently and it came about from Copernicus in the 1500s. It was one of the reasons why Martin Luther broke away. But having said that, it got banned, and it wasn't reintroduced until the 1860s. So it's actually a very, very new concept. The only people in the history of the world that's ever been down with it are the Jesuit Catholics and NASA. So that's the only people who's down with the Big Bang and Greg LaMontriere.
Why the Jesuit Catholics?
Because that is the synagogue of Satan's side of the Catholic Church, and the one who infiltrated it in the 1400s, and they haven't been the same since. And that's just from, that's what we know. I could go a lot deeper, but it gets, like I said, if you knew the fundamental question of the dome, then you would be asking. So that's why there's a lack of experiment. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you bought a Nikon P1000 and you personally took a video, because it's one of the best cameras for up close research of the stars, you're going to see that the stars are actually light frequencies. And there are many thousands of videos out there showing exactly that. And that's what's going on, is those stars are light frequencies, but you're not understanding how powerful and magical this place really is. They're giving you this pseudo physics version where you got to keep learning and learning and learning, and maybe one day you'll get it. It's way beyond that and way more magical than that you might as well give it up. And let's forget that though, because I want to go back to facts like you want. So let's talk about the poll.
Gonna interrupt the debate real quick.
Bookmark it, Jason. You'll get your point out.
You're good.
You have Candace that has a question that's lined up for you, gentlemen. Go ahead, Candace.
Okay, well, I'm seeing a couple questions in the chat, and it said, ask him how tides work in the flat Earth model. And another is, what is his take on UFOs?
Right. That's two very, very good questions. So the way that the tides work is that there are a number, about 30 different what are called Volgamers around the center point of Mount Meru of the Earth. So that center point in the Gleason map that you saw, and like I said, I don't know if that's the most accurate map, but there is a center point. So there's like 30 whirlpool Volgamers that go up and down every 6 hours. How you know this to be true is that you can go to any captain's logs in the ancient Nordic, and you look at their logs, which were punishable by death. And no matter which captain, no matter which time period, they're going to tell you about giants that were around there in that island. They're going to tell you about pygmies that were around there in that island. They're going to tell you about Mount Meru, and they're going to
Mount Meru, is this the North Pole?
That's it. So that's why it's magnetic, and that's why your compasses are pointing that way. So every 6 hours, this is what the captains in those captains' logs say. This is not my opinion. And like I said, it was punishable by death to lie in those logs. And they said that's why you had to have wooden ships back in the day, is because if you had any metal at all in those ships, those Volgamers would take you down. And they describe it into full detail. And this is not just one or two. This is dozens of them. So they're telling.
I missed it. What's a Volgamer?
A Volgamer is like a whirlpool. It's like this big giant whirlpool, and there are about 30 of them, and they're located all around the Arctic side.
Isn't it all ice up there still?
No, not at all. See, that's what I'm saying. Like,
so there's no benevolent, like, what's that guy Hughes, like in the 50s there, with a plane that could get up there with a camera. No benevolent billionaire has filmed these. You can't link Randy to something where we could have a look at these. It's only ancient sea captains that were sworn to tell the truth.
Well, don't you find it curious as how little information there is on that area?
Well, no, I mean, unless there's gold in them there hills, I don't expect people to be sending out many search parties. It's like, yeah, we got here, it was fucking ice everywhere, and we came home.
But what if it's not? Of course, if there's resources there, and there's reasons to be there, you know, and interest there, of course they're not going to tell you. And that's exactly why they're not telling you about other lands. And, you know, that's exactly why you have Admiral Byrd on national TV in the 50s. 1958 was a big year. That's when a lot of crazy stuff. That was the year Admiral Byrd said there was more land beyond the ice wall. And he called it exactly that. He said that great phenomenon, the great ice wall. Those were.
So wait. There's more land beyond it, though.
That's what he said.
Are you telling me that in the flat Earth community, no one has pooled the resources to charter a jet?
You cannot
go as far
there.
As you can.
You'll get killed. You'll get killed. There's a treaty. It's an Antarctic treaty that every.
So this is like the thing in The Mummy where there's a bunch of guards that as soon as you start looking for the mummy, they come kill you.
I'm not saying that they're definitely going to shoot you down, but if you want to go to Antarctica, believe me, I almost went. Like when I was in South America, I was way down south, and I was talking to a guy, and I was going to go, but it was minimum $10,000, and all they do is send you to like one little place, and you take some photos, and then you come right back.
Good Lord, no. I've seen the movie 8 Below. It was hideous. I've seen Eskimo people. They don't look happy. Their faces are just rot from just permanent sun or permanent darkness or no cable TV. It just doesn't look like a pleasant place to go.
Right.
But it's all in front of you. Can tell me that it makes sense, and I get that you can insert something and you can cast dispersions and doubt on the existing theory, but I haven't seen a pillar come up in place of the globe theory. And sorry, I have COVID. I haven't seen something that's like with the apple. One of the guys, and I'm not linking you to this, but a bunch of flat earthers who are awesome people, no doubt, same as Q, believers, awesome people, was talking about how like the radius of Earth is this, and from here to here, you'll see the pogo stick I've stuck through the apple, and they count that, but they're not counting this distance, the surface. And that's my friend Veritas was coming to my aid with all these graphs we were seeing, where you guys were measuring this distance through the Earth of the degrees, and you're like, well, Chicago should be 11,000 feet below the horizon here. It's like, no. When you travel here, it adds up exactly to where you should see. And someone else sent me a graph. It's like, yeah, the horizon line's at 40 miles out. I'm like, you're just showing me a picture of Chicago 40 miles out on the horizon. Like that is a big error to me in the math that I saw from flat earthers, was judging the distance from here to here on the apple by going through Earth and not around. So Are you disowning those graphics that were sent to me in Twitter?
No, because I've seen just hundreds and hundreds of lasers across, you know, every body of water in every lake around.
Okay. One final thing. Go ahead. We heard the bell. That means Spaces has to come in now.
Go for it, Candace.
All right. Dr. F has a question.
Yeah, hi, Dr. F over here, Trans. I just want to ask your guest about the Netflix documentary when they do the laser test and they prove their entire theory wrong.
Sure, absolutely. And I'll tell you, so you're going to think, oh, yeah, he's just saying that everything's a psyop. But like I said, you got to understand, nothing on Netflix is true. And like they're, you know, Again, it would be so.
This was made by flat earthers themselves.
Exactly, and that's how you control the narrative, is you infiltrate. It's just like the flat Earth society, and like the and I'll tell you exactly how it's done is exactly what the host did is he showed propaganda of our model, and he showed it going through outer space, and it's not true, and just like that is not true. And it's just.
So, do you stand with Mark Sargent or not?
Can you wait?
I do not. I think it's very possible that Mark.
I just want you to explain this. What happened? What was the laser test? How did it fail? Then Jason comes in.
In the laser test, they did a laser where they went about, I think, 8 miles, and they set up a sign that should have been the same height across 8 miles, and they let a big LED light go across, and if the Earth was curved, it wouldn't have been able to hit the sign in the spot where it did, but it ended up going perfectly. If the Earth was curved, I mean, if it was straight, it would have been in a certain spot, and if it was curved, it would have been a little bit higher. And of course, when they lifted up the light and went up higher, it showed that it was higher. So the Earth was definitely.
Wow. Okay.
So here's my question.
They were very excited. They spent a lot of money on this first.
But this was flat earthers. So
Right.
you're going to say that this Mike Sargent, did you say, Dr. Fauci?
Mark Sargent.
Mark
Sargent.
Sargent is a plant, and he's there to discredit you guys.
And I want to know about
Absolutely.
the redhead too. Then
So there's actually a lot of them. It's sad. It's
Gotcha.
sad.
so are you?
That's
so are you
why
on
they're
the
not
side of
speaking the
original
same way
flat
that I speak. You know, I speak with truth and authenticity in my voice. I don't have anything to hide. Like, and that's what, you know, a lot of people talk about. Oh, he doesn't know the physics or the math. All it is an inversion. That's how they came up with the model. Is they just, instead of the Earth being the center and the sun going around, and you know the sun is the center, and they just really reversed, engineered every aspect of it. And you know that's why they focus on, there's so many hundreds and hundreds of videos across so many bodies of water worldwide that show exactly the opposite. So that's why they had to get that one out there and show you that particular one, is because they didn't want you to see the real ones. It's really easy. It's the same. It's the same playbook. It's
at
the
all.
same.
I think you're a really great human being who is motivated more by the Bible than by science, which is amazing. I'd probably prefer
That's
have
really
you as a
that's
buddy
actually not true.
more
That's
than
actually
some
not true
stuck-up
at all.
idiot astronomer
Sure.
that believes in vaccines, but
Sure.
also believes the Earth's round. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm actually Native American, and I would probably identify more towards that, than anything. And like I said, if you go to any Native American culture, they're going to tell you the exact same thing, that it was shaped like a turtle's back, and that, you know, they're all going to tell you the same thing, no matter what Native American. Believe me, I've known this, you know. That was one of the things that I struggled with in 2015 when I found out, and I went back to my Native American roots, and I was like, that's what they said. And that's what you got to understand. It's about control. If you were in the middle of a room and there was no lights on, and that's where you are right now, you don't have your lights on. And I know that sounds a little harsh, but what's going on is, imagine a room where it's completely dark and there's just a voice telling you where to go. And that's what the globe model is they're not telling you about the other lands. They're not telling you about how the wind blows. They're not telling you about the tides. They're not telling you about the sun. Nothing in nature of the divine they're robbing you of that essence of the divine. And that's why I speak the way I speak.
Right on. Spaces. Hit it, Candace.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, I'd like to know if you can expand upon Operation High Jump and the experiences that Admiral Byrd had and what he saw.
Right. Sure. So I think Operation High Jump, Operation Fishbowl, Operation Dominic, there was all sorts of operations going on in the 50s. And basically what they were doing is they identified that the dome was there. They tried to blow the dome up and try to get out of the dome. And a lot of this is verifiable, like in their notes. And so after they tried to do that, you know, they figured out, okay, we cannot penetrate this dome. So that's really the basis of the operation. And they were trying to make bases around it. And they was like, okay, we can't do nothing with it. Then we'll just disallow people from going there. That's it. It's really, really simple.
Station up there? Is the
Go
space
ahead.
station up there? Is that a total psyop? Is that just a Hollywood basement? Like the
What
Red Hot
space-
Chili Peppers said?
Exactly.
Mir.
Exactly. Space
the
is
space
made
station
in a Hollywood
Is that
basement.
still a space station? I don't know. Did they build a new one? Like, what is your physics that keeps satellites in the firmament dome area up top?
They're on balloons. They're on helium air balloons, and some of them are and a lot of them are powered by solar energy hanging off the side. That's very, very common.
So it's balloons, and
Yep.
so when
That's
people
why-
check in from the space station, are they in a studio or are there just giant balloons and it's like an airship?
Well, there's just a lot of balloons everywhere, and that's why, like, when I'm driving up to Maine, like, you know, when I'm within the city limits, and you know, I can get stuff because they got a lot of things around here. But they have no interest in having these balloons out in the country, so they just don't do it. And that's why you don't get a signal. If it was a satellite way up there, you would get a signal in the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy.
And so when it passes, when you watch a satellite go through the sky,
Right,
right, and sink down, where's that going? That's not, is that doing a circle over a flat Earth, and you're
talking about space station.
I don't know. That's probably a bad question. I don't think there's a way to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Spaces. I'm out. I'm tapped.
You tapped. Go ahead,
There's
Space.
like questions that I think would illuminate it. I'm really not convinced that you have a working theory to replace what you're attacking. I think you can shoot holes in theory. I'm even neutral. Sure. I'm even neutral on the moon landing because I know how crazy Alan Dulles and Wisner and all those CIA guys were, and how infiltrated America was with Kim Philby at the top of MI6, and him coming over, being in every meeting that the CIA ever had, telling the Russians everything. The day that America came out and said they think Russia's 5 years away from a nuclear test, the next day Russia did a test to just laugh in their face. So I can understand a world where they need to fake going to the moon to at least school Russia in some way to say, see, we did something that you didn't know about. So I can be neutral on the moon landing and still believe the Earth is a globe. So I'm with you when there's evidence for it to at least go neutral. And I would be willing to go neutral on globe Earth. But I just feel there's absolutely no explanatory power in what you're saying. And there's not enough helium balloons in the world to hold up your argument.
Okay, then who is the number one supplier? Who is the number one purchaser of helium? Can we look that up?
It's probably a Rothschild.
Who is?
I'm just doing a statistical guess. I'm guessing it's a Rothschild.
Can we Google that, please, real quick?
Randy, Google it. And so you're saying, is the Gleason model, final question from me, and then if there's I heard a Spaces bell, so Candace, line one up if there's another question. But are you telling me that your Gleason map is the deflated basketball map where you just took a globe and flattened it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much, and this is my opinion. I'm not, this is just where I'm at with it now, and I think what they did was they basically flattened it, but they also removed Atlantis and Lemuria and maybe Mu. They removed a lot of lands as well. So the Gleason map is like half true, half psyop, and that's, you do not get the full truth in Babylon without really working for it. That's the way Babylon works. So
cool. All right, Candace, what's up?
Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, excuse me. Thanks, Candace. So actually, it's going to turn into two questions. But the first one I'll ask is, what is the ultimate agenda for the entire world science community, the historians? We could just go on and on and on throughout basically the history of time up to the point where they decided that we're going to hide this agenda and say that it's no longer a flat Earth, that it's a globe. So in long story short, what is the ultimate agenda? And then the second question to end with is, can you, real quick, hang on, I'm not done. Can you give me just a wild estimate? You can be off by 300,000 to 1 million. How many people through the last 300, 400, 500 years are part of this agenda?
Got you.
10 million, 50 million?
Got you. Both terrific questions. And in fact, what you alluded to on your last question is really what took me so long to really comprehend. And that's what, I was like, there is just no way this many people are in on it. But I just didn't know enough about secret societies. And America was actually founded on a secret society. And how you know that to be true is the Masonic symbolisms in all the Washington Monument and the Capitol and all the streets. I mean, they are just a cult. And so that was all created supposedly in the late 1700s when it was founded. So it was obvious that they did that. Now Now, what the agenda is a lot of things, and I'm glad you asked that. So it has to do a little bit with the ether and like what you know to be Tesla. Tesla, in my opinion, is a fake character and never existed. So what they're doing with Tesla is there was an ancient society called Tartaria that where they had a lot of free energy and they were harnessing the ether and they were building a lot of this architecture, and that's why you see they had star cities and star forts and all these castles, and those aren't like castles that people were living in. Basically what they were doing in ancient times, well, not even ancient times, this was like 250 300 years ago, this is what it seems, is they were harnessing electrical energy through water, and they were sending through a system of like canals and all types of stuff. They were ringing bells through the cities, and they were creating a vibrational frequency of water, and they were harnessing the ether. And so the last 200 years, it kind of got taken down. Now that's, I don't like saying that, sounds a little bit like, oh, wow. But I'm going to point y'all to videos after this. But the total agenda at the end of the day is to hide God. And how you know that is true is you got to research where heliocentrism came from and who introduced it. And it was introduced by Pope Paul to Copernicus. And why did they introduce it? It wasn't to figure out where you are in the cosmos. It was never about that. In fact, it was about changing the calendar from the Hebrew calendar and the Egyptian calendar to the modern day Gregorian calendar, and they were successful. And that's what it was all about. And that's how you know that heliocentrism has a false roots, is because it was never based on where you were at. It was based on deceiving you on where you think you are at.
All right, we got another one. We got about 7 minutes left here. So, or wait, it said 10 minutes, but that was a while ago. So let's go with 5 minutes. What's up, Candace? What's happening?
Miss Carol has a question.
Hello, fellas. So
Hey,
I'd be very interested to know if the Earth is flat, then I'd like to. I mean, what I notice is that during an eclipse, when the the way the eclipse works and the sun is behind the Earth, and the moon, and how all that kind of lines up, so that there's this big shadow over the moon where the Earth is in the way. That shadow's not straight. That shadow is curved. So if the Earth was flat, why would the shadow not be a straight line rather than a curvature?
Sure.
Love it.
Yeah, good question. There is actually a lot of different types of eclipses, and the long or the short of that is we actually don't know what's going on up there. It could be a reflection off the dome. It could be a reflection off each other. In antiquity, that there are many astronomers that said there was like Rahu and Ketu up there, that there's like opposing, the sun has an opposing of almost like a non-light duality up there, as does the moon. There's a number of different things that it could actually be doing to give off that curve. If I were to give you just my best opinion on what I think the best guide is to know what that is I would go to the Book of Enoch, and he gives like a 45-minute description on, and I'm not trying to be biblical, because there's a lot of value in this as well, where he talks about exactly how all of these things move, and eclipses take place, and the portals that they go through, and the exact calculations of everything, and then just kind of like observe it more.
Alva, can Carol ask her last question?
Go ahead.
And I want TJ to weigh in because he's a bro and he's on the show. But so TJ will close it out after Candace's question, unless Alpha steps in and alphas me. You know, I'm the beta, the alpha, because this is his
Well,
network.
we'll go ahead and do exactly as you said, but you also have a special guest that just joined you in Spaces, the United Spot. So as long as they can get their connection going, and Candace will let us know, you can wrap it up with them as their last question or statement, and then you can send everybody off. But I'll let you gents continue.
Okay, so just my quick follow-up question, because you had mentioned, maybe the Earth and the sun are reflecting off each other, and that explains the curve. So we're thinking that maybe, the moon and the sun reflecting off each other, that's a possible theory. So does that theory acknowledge that the moon and the sun are round and yet the Earth is flat?
No, actually, what it is now this is going to be pretty fascinating stuff right here. If I were to give my best estimate, this is as an electrician, like the sun and the moon, they're not terra firma at all. In fact, what it is the sun is actually this is a giant battery system, a perfectly designed battery system. The sun is an electromagnetic hot wire, and like any hot wire, it's going to continually to bring down energy. And what it's doing is that it's bringing down energy to the ground, and it's the different conductors. That's why when you travel and there's different mineral contents and different metal contents in the ground, that's why when you fly and travel to different places, you as an electrical system feel different. And so the sun is then sending energy down to the saline electrolyte in the battery, which is the ocean, and the chemical reaction of the saline electrolyte and the electromagnetic hot wire give another thing that they're hiding in the agenda. Like my guy said earlier, is the oil is abiotic and it's naturally replenishing from the chemical reactions, and that's why it's underground, and that's why the Hebrews said it was underground. And this is where it gets really interesting, is so what is the moon? The moon is the neutral. And so as any electrician knows, is what does a neutral wire do? So the neutral wire takes the energy from the source after the earth has used it and delivers it, or not from the source, takes it from the load and delivers it back to the source. That's what the moon's responsibility is, and this is where it's really interesting. So God made it so magical. So a half moon, half charged earth. Crescent moon, zero charge. A full moon, a fully charged earth. And that's the indicator light of what the charge levels of on our earth. It's so easy and so magical, and but yet so so simple. And it's really a 24-hour clock. And if you analyze that Gliesa map a little bit more, you're going to see like anywhere you're at above noon is where it's going to be, where the sun is overhead, that local sun. And that's how the 24-hour clock came about.
Wow. It sounds like you've dedicated, thank you, Carol. Amazing questions.
Good question.
You've dedicated a lot.
One more, Alpha.
There's one more?
You have one more with the
Let's
guest
get it.
speaker, the United Spot.
Let's
I'm
do it.
here.
United Spot,
I'll
hit
stay
it.
forever. Go ahead.
We're waiting on United Spot, Twitter Spaces. Candace dropping the friggin' ball. I don't know why I didn't swear.
He's got the mic. United, do you want to say something? Do you want to ask a question?
What a letdown.
United.
What a letdown.
Do you have a question for Trans or the guest? All right, go ahead, Rachel. Rachel has one, and then we'll finish it out.
Go ahead.
Hi. So getting back to Admiral Byrd, what about the part where he was chasing the Nazi subs into Antarctica because he knew they were going to try and keep the Third Reich going? They ended up inside the Earth. This is
Right.
the accounting of,
Sure.
and they were in a city that had electricity and it was very warm. And they found angels and demons there and lots of experiments, and they hightailed it out of there. Can you expand upon that stuff? Because
that sounds like a huge. Can you, Jason? I like it. That's a fascinating question, but it sounds like that's going to take a while.
Well, I mean, the only expansion that I can say is like he gives a lot of interviews. Now, my personal opinion about Admiral Byrd, and you're gonna say I think everybody is part of the psyop, but I think there's a lot of truth to what he's saying, but yet a lot of things don't add up. You know, that's probably for another discussion. But like I said, everybody is controlled opposition, just like Joe Rogan is controlled opposition, just like Alex Jones is controlled opposition. You know, everybody is controlled opposition, and they're going to give you a little bit of truth because you have to have that to feel human. It's going to ring that human bell inside of you and support that person. But the reality is, as there's levels to their deception, and they're being told, on what to say in many cases. And that's do not trust. The only people I really trust are, that's why, and the presenter's not going to like this, I like going back to a lot of culturally sound historical backgrounds and seeing a common thread. And if I can do that and it aligns with my senses, that's when I feel like I'm onto something. But at the end of the day, it's all about going back to God.
Cool. Much appreciated, Rachel. Thanks for all the questions coming in from Spaces. I love it when you're jumping in. I love that bell. That's a really cool sound effect. Thank you, Alpha. Jason, I think you're incredibly smart. I think that you
as well
dedicated yourself to this. I feel you've got motivated reasoning rooted in spirituality, and it's conflicting with the scientific aspect. So I'm not convinced by your arguments, but I am convinced you've dedicated a lot of thought to this. You're a very smart guy, and you're guided by the right principles, because in this day and age, I would much rather have a flat earther who knows good and evil than some prissy NASA dude who's on his 4th fucking booster ready to meet God. Right. So thank you so much for being here. We've got 2 ejection modes that I want for debate opponents or someone. I was thinking we might use the hostile one, but I think you've earned everyone's respect. So we're going to say goodbye to you, Jason. Please join the Spaces. You're a wealth of knowledge on stuff that Rachel is very interested in. I'm interested in the Antarctic thing. If my phone's got more than 2% batteries, I'm joining you guys in Spaces. But thanks so much for your time. And please, you're welcome back if I've got any other stuff where I need a debate opponent, because not many people do it. But Randy, with that, could we give Jason, our friend, an honorable ejection from the show? All right, and that was Jason. TJ, are you still there? I'd love to give you the final word. We're running 7 minutes over, but you're worth it, my friend. I just want your takeaways. How are you feeling about that? Are you on the globe with me? Are you on that flat disc of that deflated basketball?
I'm on the globe, because I don't believe that this whole entire flat Earth thing even exists.
That's it. That's what I needed to hear. That's what I needed from you, and you delivered it tonight.
Because when you go online and you look at the Hubble telescope, it shows it's a globe, not a friggin' flat Earth.
I'm with you, buddy, as usual. Thanks to everyone in Spaces for participating. I was reading the comments. It just wasn't apropos for me to jump in and acknowledge them. Yes, these are children's headphones. To whoever has a daughter that has these ones, they work great. My kids break my headphones. I prefer the earbuds, but these don't work. Other comments. Thank you, Mehdi, for participating in that comment section. You really kept it lively, and I enjoyed all your stuff. Everybody in Spaces, thanks for tuning in. We love you all. Alpha Network, from here to the stars. And then once we're at the stars, we're going to look back and we're going to see that it is a globe. Tune in next week, where we're going to have some other topic with some other brave soul that's going to come in and impress us like Jason did. Thank you, Candace. You did great as usual. Thank you, TJ. Thank you, Alpha. Thank you, Randy. Randy brought the heat, putting all the stuff on screen we needed to see. Exactly what I wanted. And you rule. Everybody rules. Till next time, take care of yourselves and each other.